Good evening for those that have joined. We're going to give you a couple more minutes for the others to join, and then we'll kick off the workshop tonight. So welcome everyone along to the 18th Skills Workshop, focusing on the virtual career fairs this evening. So a very warm welcome from me. I'm Elaine Fow and I work at Aberdeen, and I'm based in what is a very sunny Edinburgh today. I'm sure many of you have joined the sessions before, so welcome back and thank you for coming along to hear what we have to say this evening, and a very warm welcome to anyone who's joining for the first time as well. As I mentioned earlier, my name's Elaine Fow. I work at Aberdeen and I'll be hosting the session today. We had a technical choice this afternoon of me being able to share slides via Zoom or you being able to see my face, and you'll be pleased to know that we opted for sharing the slides with you this evening. So apologies you aren't able to see me on the screen, but I'll be doing my best to host in the background. The skills workshop was created, as many of you will know, to give you the skills, knowledge and insight that you need to help to prepare for a career in asset management. And over the course of the session today, we'll hopefully bring to life that from an Aberdeen perspective, and also talk a little bit about the routes to entry for our particular organisation. And over the course of September and October, 41 firms will have been featured, one every day for an hour every day, which is an amazing project to pull off. All of the sessions are free, and we have shared with you the details if you want to see any of the previous recordings or join any of the future sessions in the chat box. So take a look at those. So joining me on the call tonight are David and Nadia, who also work at Aberdeen with me. And I'll quickly pass over to David to introduce himself first and Nadia second. So David, can I pass to you?
Sure. Thank you very much, Elaine. And good afternoon, evening or morning, everybody, depending on where you're dialing in from. Yeah, my name's David. I work in the investments vector of Aberdeen. The word vector will become clear, I'm sure, as we go through the business. I've been here for 2 years. I joined on the internship program, rolled off into the graduate program, and as of February this year, have become an investment analyst in what is known as multi-asset solutions in the strategic asset allocation area of that. I'll give you a bit more of a flavour what that is later on in the program, but for now, I'll just pass on to Nadia to also introduce themselves.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and good morning, depending on where you are in the world. I'm really delighted to be here this evening to be speaking to all of you. As David mentioned and Elaine mentioned, my name is Nadia Delaray, and I've been the early careers talent acquisition consultant here at Aberdeen since April of 2019. I'm privileged to have a really fulfilling role as I get to change lives. My role offers me the opportunity to interact and engage with wonderful individuals like yourselves. And more importantly, I get to connect you to programs that will allow you to make more informed career choices. Later in today's discussion, I will talk to you a little bit about the various early careers programs that Aberdeen has to offer. But more importantly, we'll be here to answer any top of mind questions that you have. So really looking forward to engaging in this discussion, but more importantly, I hope that you enjoy today's discussion with us. Thanks, Elaine.
Brilliant. Thank you both. And in terms of an introduction from myself, I'm currently an HR business partner with Aberdeen, and I joined Aberdeen almost 12 years ago. And as a business partner facing off to all of the investment management teams in our business, gives me, similar to Nadia, an opportunity to see individuals from the start of their career and progressing through and helping supporting them doing that. So it's great to have the opportunity to share some of that with you all today. So we thought we would kick off with a short introduction of who Aberdeen are. And before I do that, some of you may have heard of some of our heritage, our parent companies, and Aberdeen itself was formed through the merger of Standard Life, which is one of Scotland's oldest financial institutions, with Aberdeen Asset Management, which is probably one of Scotland's youngest financial institutions. And then coming together of those have allowed us to pick the best parts of each of the organisations from a cultural perspective, from a product perspective, and we, with the appointment of our new CEO last summer, we really turned up the dial on firming up who we are and what we're going to do for our clients and communities that we work in. So I'll just quickly take you through one of our slides that we share with everyone to tell us a bit about ourselves. And as David mentioned, you might hear the word vector a few times tonight. So at Aberdeen, we aim to empower our clients to plan, save and invest for their futures. And we recognise that our clients span a broad spectrum, from very large institutional companies who can invest billions of pounds with us, down to the personal individual investor who might have a couple of £1,000, if not more or less, in an ISA. And so we organise ourselves in these three areas, and we call them internally vectors: the investment vector, the advisor vector, and the personal vector. And across each of those areas, what we're looking to do is understand what is the value that we add to our clients and how do we differentiate ourselves from our competitors. So within the, just spotted a chat there. Sounds like people are not quite able to hear me. Nadia, David, can you both hear me? Yeah?
I can indeed, Elaine. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is anyone else having that issue? Nicholas, it might just be you. Do you want, I'll leave you to check your settings and let me know if that's still an issue as I continue. Great, thanks everyone who's replied in chat. So back to the vector. So if I think about the investment vector, there are two main components of that. Firstly, that's where all of our portfolio managers, fund managers, whatever you want to call them, sit, and we employ them and support and develop them to be able to bring expertise and excellence in investment management. So part of that is about the funds that we manage and the performance that they deliver. The second part of that investment vector is how we take that excellence and performance to market. And we do that by packaging up our products and our funds into solutions, and then also building relationships with clients. So there's two sides to the investment vector: the investment management side, and then the route that we take that to market to meet our clients' needs. From an advisor perspective, the middle green box on the slide there, what we're looking to do is differentiate ourselves in the service that we provide to the financial advisors, so independent financial advisors as they would be known in the UK. And so we do that in two ways. We have a market-leading platform technology that allows the financial advisors who sign up to it to offer a great service to their own customers. And behind the scenes, we provide excellent support to them in terms of our own funds that are available on the platform. Third-party funds are also available, but also in managing updates to the platform and keeping them alive to what's going on in the industry and helping them be at the forefront of the service they provide to their clients. And then finally, personal is probably our newest vector that we focused on, and that's about supporting individual investors for their short-term, medium-term or long-term goals by providing financial planning and digital investing services. And that's a really exciting, huge growth area for us, and we're focusing on the UK there for a moment. So you can see how albeit ostensibly an asset management organisation, our products and our route to market allow us to touch the full spectrum of clients, and that's one of the exciting things about working for Aberdeen. There's a number of things that we do across all of those vectors to ensure excellence. So we invest in technology to make sure clients are making better decisions. We have a heavy research agenda across all of the vectors, particularly within investments, to make sure that we understand the trends that are coming down the line and we can prepare for them and prepare our clients for them. We partnership where we need to enhance the offering for our clients, and we not only stay curious about things that are happened and work in partnership with our clients to understand what they're curious about, but we're also very committed to both sustainable investing from a product range, but also in how we do everything within the organisation. So that was meant to be a very short overview of our organisation, but as you can see, I'm quite excited about what's going on in the company and wanted to go into a bit more detail on that. So please add your questions as we're going through to the Q&A box, but for the meantime, I'll put myself on mute and pass you over to David.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background to what in the investment side of the business we actually get up to. And I, as I said, sit in multi-asset solutions. Now, at least when I joined the company a couple of years ago, I had an appreciation of what single asset classes were. So the stock market, real estate, bonds, etc. But hadn't really understood what this idea of multi-asset was. I come from a quantitative background, so from an engineering perspective, then did a kind of master's in finance. So I had a little bit of an idea, but nevertheless, multi-asset is a way of harmonizing across all of these different areas. And it's a very, very interesting part of the business. So if we could just go to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, I work in an area called strategic asset allocation. Now, many of our clients invest in multiple assets. Now, one of the biggest decisions that they need to make is how much do I allocate to asset X, asset Y, or asset Z? Now, on the screen in front of you at the moment is the way in which we understand how to invest in those different asset classes. And the metrics that we use are generally the payoff, the relationship between risk and reward. So risk is volatility, how much things move around. Reward is the returns. That is, at the end of the day, what we are trying to do for our clients, obviously, among other things. And this is one of the outputs from my team. We do forecasting. So we say, in 5 years' time, what do we think the UK stock market will do? What do we think the US stock market will do? And so you can see a couple of different trends on this particular chart. On the top right, you see, sorry for those who are colorblind, but you see some blue dots, and those are the equities. So they're generally higher risk, higher reward. So for generally more risk-taking investors, people that want to have, a loaded up high volatility investment, they will focus more on equities. The top right, the blue dots. For those of us that are slightly more risk averse, depending on your background, the green dots, bottom left, are fixed income. So that is a bond, that is a loan to the US government, to the UK government, to a particular company. And it's this intersection and interplay between different asset classes where we add value, or at least try to add value to our clients to help them make that decision. The strategic asset allocation is something that underpins a lot of the big portfolios. You can time the market, you can be tactical. I like to think of that as a speedboat that takes lots of quick turns left and right. The strategic asset allocation is the fundamental basis. It's the cruise ship that turns very slowly, tilting towards things and away from others. And that is one of the really interesting areas of the job. It's quite theoretical, it's quite fundamental, it's also quite mathsy, as I started by explaining. Now, if you type in strategic asset allocation and ESG onto Google, I'm hoping that Aberdeen is #1 on that list. And if we go to the next slide, please, I'll try and explain a little bit about what it is we do and how we add value to the clients. Now, with any long-term investing, remember strategic asset allocation is longer-term fundamental asset allocation. With any long-term trend, the ESG themes, so environmental, sustainable, and governance themes, are really important. I'm sure for any of you who've looked at applying to the asset management business, ESG will have been somewhere on the brief, somewhere on the description. Now, this is a really important area. And on the slide, I've just got some of the areas that we try and focus on. For example, we can look at doing things such as using ESG scores. So that is to go into a particular company to say from an environmental perspective, from a social perspective, or governance. So say social would be the gender pay gap, the percentage of women and men, or any other gender classification on a board in a particular company. So how do they fare on those metrics? And we generally want to go for the better ones, the ones that rank highest on these things. There's a lot of theoretical studies to say that better ESG metric companies perform better. We can also do things like reduce carbon intensity. So obviously with the climate progression in the investment sector, it's very important to understand what our carbon footprint is. How much are we contributing to the climate change transition? And that is, again, something that our clients really want us to see. And I'll go on to that in a little bit on the next slide. Do we want to look at climate scenarios? So do companies perform better in different future forecasts in the realm of climates? A few other things like that. And with putting all of these sorts of things together, we can get a picture and build a suite of tools, of considerations, of reporting to show our clients, to say, you know, we're saying that we're a leading investor in this space, but here's how we actually prove it. It's always forward looking. The asset allocation that I've just talked to you about is a forecast. The climate scenarios are a forecast. We're always looking forward because that is what the clients want. And it's also important to try and understand what is what the future will hold for these portfolios. Now, one of the key products that we offer, if we just move to the next slide, please, is a climate solutions fund. So this is a newly launched suite of funds that I'm involved in. And I think also one point to make that I'm just, well, relatively fresh off the graduate program, and I'm already getting an exposure to the funds that we run. And that is an incredibly exciting opportunity for someone at my stage of the career. And obviously we'll be plugging Aberdeen. I think that's something that we really value in the company, is the young talent coming through and the exposures that are given to fortunate people such as myself. So back to the content of my presentation. This particular offering is a climate solutions fund. It's called Multi-Asset Climate Solutions, MAX for short. And it's essentially a way of targeting the transition towards a net zero world. So obviously there's a bit of an issue at the moment with companies emitting carbon, the damage that is being done to the climate as a result of the industrial activities, the emissions of the cars and things like that. So companies such as Tesla, NIO is another electric vehicles company, are doing things that are going to help that transition to reduce the carbon that the general stock market is putting out into the world. And so what we are trying to do in this particular product, again, to try and show you the intersection of the investments world and the climate, the forecasting, the assessment of the rest of the economy, is you know, put these two things together. So we try and identify companies that are green, so that have a large proportion of their revenues, so the money they make, from good activities. So be that kind of electric vehicles, solar energy, wind energy, hydrogen, etc., etc. We also look at green credit. So a green bond is essentially something where I lend you money and you use it to fund green activities, such as the development of a solar panel, the research into how to make your company greener. So for example, in Aberdeen, we try and limit the use of paper cups because that reduces our waste. We try and look at how do we use electricity in our offices itself, because that is one of the sources of our carbon emissions. How do we improve the transport that our employees come to work? We have a cycle to work scheme, which is very, very useful if you're into cycling, and it's also better for the environment, those sorts of things. And renewable infrastructure is the assessment, or rather creation, of solar plants, hydrogen plants, wind turbine manufacture. So it's a really interesting area to work in, and the understanding and assessment of all of these different things and how they might factor together is a really exciting and insightful product that we can go to our clients with. It's a really compelling story, and it's also one of the issues, as was mentioned earlier, that our clients are most looking out for. So I'm very happy to answer any questions that you may have on any of the things that I've briefly touched on here in the Q&A afterwards. But for now, Elaine, I'll pass back to you for the next section of the presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. I can already see a few questions coming in that I'll be directing your way after Nadia's had a chance to talk us through our programmes and how we set up those in Aberdeen.
Thanks so much for that, David, and thanks for the introduction once again, Elaine. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the early careers programs here at Aberdeen. And before I actually go into talking about the programs that we do have on offer, it's important for me to mention that the programs, and certainly the early careers programs at Aberdeen, form a vital part of our overall talent strategy here at the organisation. So not only do our early careers programs vitalize the organisation with fresh thinking, new skills, these programs are also critical in ensuring that we drive greater levels of diversity across the organisation, both from a gender perspective, from an ethnicity perspective, and from a social mobility perspective. Our early careers programs are also critical in fulfilling broader community commitments to provide career opportunities to many students like yourselves, and even more so in an incredibly challenging employment market that we currently sit in. So let me talk to you a little bit about the entry-level programs that we have on offer. Of course, I may miss some of the details, so please feel free to pop in any of the questions into the chat box functionality. But I'll start off by talking firstly about our traineeship program. So our traineeship program is a program that's aimed at school and college leavers. And this program is a really great opportunity for those school and college leavers to gain first-hand understanding of what asset management is all about, and also to gain first-hand understanding of what multiple roles an asset manager like ourselves and career options are available to individuals that might not quite know where they want their careers to progress. It's a great opportunity where individuals can come in and they can learn in a safe and well-supported environment, but more importantly, they can earn at the same time. So if you are a school or a college leaver, this is really, really a good program that if you're sitting there going, I'm not quite sure what I want to study at university, I haven't quite formulated that in my mind yet, this is a great opportunity for you to come in on a 12-month fixed term contract. You'll be allocated to a particular business area and you'll be given real life work to participate in. The application process for our traineeship program opens up in the spring of every year. We've currently we've just finalized the hiring of our new trainees who will be joining us on the 25th of October. So those of you that are keen to perhaps explore an opportunity on our traineeship program, those applications will open up in the spring. That then leads me on to the other two entry-level programs that we have on offer, and that is our internship and our graduate programs. So our internship program is a 10-week summer internship. So that program runs over the summer of every year. So it'll be running over June. So that will be June of 2022. It's aimed at penultimate and final year students. Our internship program is really designed to give students like yourselves an opportunity, firstly, to build your networks, but also to give you an ability to participate in real life projects that you would typically find an asset management type of role fulfilling. But it also gives you an ability to truly understand the asset management industry, but it also gives you the ability to understand what you do and you don't like. And again, giving you an opportunity to understand the multiple career opportunities available within an asset management like ourselves. Our internship program, like our graduate program, we welcome individuals from a variety of degree disciplines. So we don't only look for individuals coming from a finance or an economics background. We have sports scientists that have joined us. We have psychologists that have joined us. We have had mathematicians join us on our programs. For us, it's all about the diversity that the individual can bring to the program and more broadly to the organization. The summer internship program applications will be opening up in mid-October this year. So please be on the lookout for that application process. That application process will run from mid-October to the end of November. Also, just to make mention that our internship program is very much a pipeline of talent programs. So we tend to find that a large percentage of our interns would be converted onto a graduate program. But I also just to kind of let you know that it's not the only entry route into a graduate program. We do at times, depending on the role and depending on the vacancy, we do at times have vacancies that do become available for a direct role onto a graduate program. Should we have any of those opportunities available, those opportunities will also become available on our early careers website in mid-October. So be on the lookout for that as well. And then we also have, of course, our graduate programs. So our graduate programs are essentially for final year students or recently graduated students. Our graduate programs are anywhere between 24-month and 36-month rotational programs, where you get to really get an experience of the organization, both from a breadth and a depth perspective, and you get to participate in 4 6-month rotations within the organization. For both our traineeship program, our internship programs, and our graduate programs, we hire across the various vectors. So Elaine mentioned the 3 vectors: investments, advisor, and personal. We hire our interns, graduates, and trainees across those vectors, but we also have what we call our functions business, which essentially are our enablers to our vectors. Those are businesses such as finance, risk and compliance, legal, HR, brand marketing, corporate affairs, operations. We also welcome interns, trainees, and graduates onto those programs. So just kind of by signposting that, you can get a sense of the vastness of graduate programs, internship programs, and traineeship programs that we have on offer within the organization. It's also really important to mention that all our early careers programs are structured programs. And we also, by saying that, we have a very structured and tailored development program that underpins every one of those early careers programs. It's really important for us when we're bringing early careers talent into the organization. One, we give you the best experience we possibly can, but we also give you an opportunity to learn through structured and formal learning, but we also give you the opportunity to learn through experiential learning, whereby you learn with and through others on a program. So the developments and the learning opportunities that underpins our early careers programs is absolutely paramount for us. More importantly, on both our traineeship program and our graduate program, we also offer the support to provide you a professional qualification. And we also provide the support of a line manager, a buddy, and a mentor. And more importantly, we give you the opportunity to build your networks by giving you access to a variety of different networks, so our diversity networks, but also various colleagues across the organization to help you with your learning journey and to build out the networks that you have within the organization. As much as we have our 3 entry-level programs that are structured in design, it's not the only route of entry into the organization. We have multiple talent strategies that we adopt within the organization, and therefore there are opportunities whereby you can go on and apply to a direct hire opportunity. So if you're looking to come straight into the organization without having to go through a structured program, we do also have opportunities for entry-level talent to come in through those channels. Elaine, if I can ask you just to go on to the next slide for me. The next slide is really, in many conversations, and I have multiple conversations with students like yourselves on a daily basis, and I always get asked the question, so what do I need to do to set me apart from any other applicants that comes through the application process? And on this slide, I've just highlighted what we think is important to us at Aberdeen. And you'll see that most of the things that we've highlighted as important are really around the softer or human-centered skills. We absolutely acknowledge that having good academic discipline is really, really important for us. But we also know that your academic results are not always an accurate predictor of job performance. And that's why we often will look outside of your academic results, and we'll look to the skills and the traits that I've highlighted on this slide for you to bring to the conversation and for you to bring to light in your application process and when constructing your CV. So I would urge you that when you are going through any application process, whether it be through ours or whether it be through any other organization, be sure to make sure that you're tailoring your CV and be sure to make sure that you are bringing to life the unique skills and abilities that you can bring to the organization and to the role that you are applying to. So I'm conscious that I've probably got 1 minute left before Q&A. So I really just wanted to say that we know our application process, like I say, for internship and potentially some graduate programs for next year will be opening up in mid-October. And we really would urge you to go onto our Early Careers website. So it's the Aberdeen Early Careers website. Go and have a look at the opportunities that we have available and be sure to get your application in as early as you possibly can. But don't miss the opportunity because that application process will end in November. So at the end of November, that's when we'll be closing our applications for next year's programs. So I'm going to pause there, Elaine, and I suppose we'll get it opened up for questions and answers.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nadia. So we've already got quite a few questions in the Q&A box, so keep those coming in and I'll just work through them in the order that they've come in, if that's okay with everyone. So David, I'm going to pass this question over to you first. What's the favourite part of your job?
Thank you very much. That's a lovely question. I think in the time that I've been at the company, I haven't really had a day that's been the same as the previous one. And what I've enjoyed in the transition from university to working life is that intellectual stimulation, the constant learning. Oh, what does that mean? What does that technical thingamabob mean? What does that saying mean? How is that person talking? It's very dynamic. As I say, no 2 days are the same. And I think that constant development in your personal, transition towards being a professional in whatever vector of the business you work is something that I've really enjoyed.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. Nadia, there's two questions here about, the first one I think you've answered, that the 2020 summer internships will open for application mid-October. One thing that prompts me to ask is, could you share a little bit about what that application process involves, please?
Sure, no problem. So our application process is not dissimilar to what you would probably find most organizations follow. So we have a 4-stage application process. So the first part of the application process is an online application, which essentially is the upload of your CV. But we've also built into our application process a series of questions that we ask all applicants to complete. And those questions are really much designed around motivation and purpose. So what's really important for us and for us to see coming through in any applicant's application is their motivation and the why behind they are wanting to apply for a particular role, and more importantly, why are they wanting to apply to us as an organization. So just as a point to make mention is, before you embark on the application process, be very sure that you're able to articulate your why and the purpose around the application you're submitting, and make sure you're tailoring it and make sure that you're making it as authentic as possible. The second stage of our application process, which is probably the most daunting stage of the process for most students, is the online test. So this is typically your psychometric assessment process. We have a number of assessments, or a battery of assessments, that we have built into our online test process. And this can span from situational judgment testing to various reasoning testing, for example, logical reasoning, numerical reasoning, verbal reasoning. We also have a behavioral test or a personality test, which really assesses your fit for the organization. Now, I have mentioned that it is probably the most daunting part of the process, and that's where we tend to see the biggest percentage of drop-offs in our application process. But what all of you can go on and do is do practice tests. So before you embark on an online test, most organizations on their websites will signpost you to a practice test where you can go on and actually practice completing an online test or psychometric testing before actually doing the actual tests, and I urge you to do that. The fourth part of our process is a video interview. So this is a pre-recorded video interview where we ask a series of questions, and this is a combination of questions. Some are motivation based. So again, this is where we want you to showcase the motivation and the purpose, the why behind your applying to a particular program and Aberdeen. But we also have a various competency-based questions built into the video interview part of the process. Again, there are so many tools and resources available to you on various websites where you can actually go on and practice doing a video interview before you actually participate in a real life video interview. And then the last stage of our process is our assessment center process. Our assessment center process really is a combination of activities. It's a case study presentation, it's a group activity, and it is an interview that you would participate in. So quite a rigorous process, lots of steps. Lots of different data points that we collect throughout our process, and we do that, and it's designed in that way because we want to ensure that we're making the most informed decision in terms of who we actually hire onto our early careers programs. So I hope that's given enough detail in terms of the application process, Elaine.
Great, thanks, Nadia. The thing I'd add as well over the process, whilst we're finding information out about you through that process, it's also a great opportunity for you to find out about us as well and the organisation. So the next question is, how does Aberdeen differentiate from other asset managers in the field? So I'll take a stab at that and then let Nadia and David add anything in that they want to. So one of the things that we pride ourselves on in the investment management area is that we are a team-based culture. We don't have a star-based culture where we have star fund managers. Everyone is involved in the team in the investment process, and that brings a number of different benefits. It brings stability for clients. We're not prone to one person leaving it and the performance of the fund collapsing. It brings rigor to our investment process, and it brings huge amounts of expertise around decisions and make sure that those are as robust as possible. Our scale across the globe means that we are able to be on the ground in a number of different areas and countries and bring that expertise into the fund management decisions. And finally, we have credit to our CIO. We have a very strong governance and oversight process. That's important, has been important to him in the tenure that he's had in the role and will outlast him when he retires. But that oversight, focus on improvement and constant improvement of how we do things helps set us apart. David, Nadia, would you say I've missed anything there?
No, I think that's really well articulated. I suppose just one piece from me is I think our inclusion and diversity agenda is also a real key differentiator that really makes us stand out. I think we have done some fantastic work in making sure that Certainly, if I look at it from a recruitment perspective, to make sure that our processes are inclusive and fair and standardized. We have fantastic diversity networks within the organization that really help spearhead and shift the dial from a diversity perspective. And of course, we have the absolute buy-in and sponsorship from the very most senior leaders within the organization to ensure that inclusion and diversity is at the heart of everything that we do within the organization. So that would just probably be my piece to add, Elaine.
Great point, Nadia. David, anything from you?
Yeah, sure. I suppose just with a focus, given that I sit in that area, on the investments expertise that we have internally. We are a leader in the emerging markets and Asia space. We've had exposures there, offices out there for many years, and with the joining of Stephen Bird, our new CEO, as of, well, I suppose not so new anymore, but nevertheless, with Stephen's joining, he's brought a lot of expertise from that region, and we are ever focusing more on the growth, seeing that as a really strong future opportunity. So that expertise, as well as the private market side of things, I think is really something that we do offer differently than our competitors. But yeah, I think everything else has been covered very well. So back to you, Elaine.
Great, thanks, David. I'm going to group the next two questions together, and they're coming back to you, David. So one is, does Aberdeen usually engage with the management of companies in which it's invested in order to push them towards an ESG approach? And in this case, how do you manage these relations? And very similar and also very topical, how would you recommend asset managers position themselves to better society, preventing scenarios like the present gas shortages and energy price spikes?
Thank you. Both very good questions. I believe so. On the first one, on the company engagement, in any meeting that us as investors have with the companies within which we invest, there will often be a relatively lengthy ESG sort of checklist that we go through to meet certain criteria. Such questions as, do you have policies on, as I mentioned earlier, gender diversity? Do you have policies on the pay, the remuneration packages that will vary between, or perhaps not vary between companies? And so these sorts of things will come up at regular meetings that we have, likely once a quarter, once every half a year. And to the point of the question, if a particular company doesn't perform too well, then that is an open engagement that we have. We are quite a hands-on investor in that sense, but if the company doesn't meet enough of the criteria, that is a case for divestment in that particular company. There are essentially exclusionary screens, so to say, if they don't meet these sorts of things, we will drop them off of our investment universe. But it is, of course, a very growing area of debate, and one that is constantly at the top of the investor's mind when we're going out to the companies. To the second point of the fuel shortages, I think that's a difficult question, at least for myself to answer. I know the government has told us many times that there is no fuel shortage, but that's not really the point there. I think that we're focusing quite a lot on the future of things like fuel. And as I mentioned, companies such as Tesla or wind providers or solar energy providers are going to be the solution to that. And so we are focusing on removing in certain funds investments to, removing companies that are exposed to these sorts of things. So removing oil and gas companies, removing utilities companies that have really bad carbon emissions or ESG scores. And with that, we are tilting and therefore providing capital to the companies that will be providing the future energy sources, such that in the future you won't have to queue for multiple hours to get your petrol. You can get it hopefully from your solar panel. I hope that's attempted to at least answer the question, but please do let me know if not, and I'll have another stab at it at a later date. But yeah, I think that was that the two questions, Elaine?
Yes, brilliant. Thank you, David.
No problem.
Nadia, a question for you. As an MBA student with around 3 years of work experience, am I eligible to apply for a summer internship?
Yes, you are. Absolutely. So for our summer internships, we tend to look at penultimate year students, but that does not limit your application if you are an MBA student having 3 years experience. So our programs are really, really flexible. So absolutely go on and apply to the summer internship program.
I'll also just take the opportunity to point out that at any one time we will have a number of roles where we're looking for someone not necessarily straight out of university or that has a little bit of experience or a little bit more qualifications on our experienced professional careers jobs board, so please take a look there as well if you're interested in joining us. Nadia, there's a couple of questions here about programs we have available for first year students. Spring Weeks is given as an example. Is that something we're considering or something we've done in the past?
Yeah, so we don't offer specific spring weeks. However, we do work alongside a number of charities that we work with, where we do have work placements for those particular students coming through those charities. But we also do partner with a number of diversity partners such as SEO London, Bright Network, Rate My Placements, and they always have a lot of opportunities available to first and second year students, even if it is just in a virtual capacity. There's some great learning opportunities that you can immerse yourself in through those partners. But we don't offer kind of first year insight weeks to first year students at this point.
Okay, thanks Nadia. And just while your line's muted, there's a question here about whether we offer summer internships in the US or in EMEA as well. Yeah,
we do. So we do run summer internships, not in EMEA. Not at this point. However, we do welcome interns into our US office. They run a very similar program to us, and they also have their internships running over the June, July summer break. And again, they run a very similar application process. We do have our summer internship programs open already on our website for our US internships. So those of you that are looking to potentially do a summer internship within the US office, you can go onto our website and apply accordingly.
Great. Thanks, Nadia. Question for you next, David. One of the individuals on the call is interested in the multi-asset division and looking to understand how much coding is involved in the division, and it'd be helpful if you could bring to life the teams that look at that and what sort of experience they look for.
Yeah, of course. I think that's to preface my answer. That's a skill that is becoming increasingly useful in the investment and I suppose generally in your career. So I think it's great that you're taking the initiative and asking these sorts of questions to people like myself. When I joined, to give you an example, I would say that multi-asset as a department, as an investments department, is probably one of the more quantitative areas. It's less talking to companies, engaging with them. It's more data, big picture, macro driven. So there's the macro investors, which is someone like myself in multi-asset. Micro is the tiny details. That's go to company ABC, have a conversation. So whenever you're dealing with lots of data, so in multi-asset, it's generally a little bit more quantitative. But within the department, there are multiple different teams that manage different types of funds. So for example, we have a team called Modeling and Analytics, M&A, not to be confused with the investment banking M&A. It's much more fun. Modeling and Analytics are the team that do a lot of the coding, that do a lot of the risk analysis to say, if we invest in a particular position, how will that affect the risk profile of the fund? So that's essentially the volatility, how much we think the price might move. So in that department, you probably need some coding skills to work in there, but there's a whole range, say 80%, 90% of the rest of the department where that's not so important. Clearly, having an appreciation of numbers is useful, but by no means is having quantitative skills required. I came with very little quantitative skills and have only just found the need or the use to download MATLAB. I got it installed this morning, so I will be joining you on the journey to use all of these wonderful programs in due course.
Brilliant, thank you, David. Nadia, a couple of questions for you that I'll group together, if that's okay. How many internships are there typically available, and what sort of experiences will people get in the investments arena through those?
Yes, so on average, about 40 placements are offered on an annual basis to interns. And like I said, a large percentage of those interns then get converted directly onto our graduate programs. Our internship opportunities, specifically within investments vector, span across many different asset classes. So we hire interns into equities, fixed income, multi-asset, multi-manager, the quantitative investment team, the research team, the product team. So there are multiple opportunities within the investments vector, certainly within the asset classes for those wishing to come in and join an internship program. How the internship would work is you would be placed into an asset class, and you would then work within that asset class for the duration of your 10 weeks. So you'll be given a particular project that you will work on, and you will then need to deliver on that project by the end of the 10 weeks. What it doesn't mean is that you can't learn about other asset classes or about other functions or vectors within Aberdeen. We urge all our interns that do come in to absolutely put their best foot forward and immerse themselves into the 10-week learning opportunity within their particular business area or asset class. But we also urge you to learn with your fellow intern cohort, and we also urge you to learn with others across the organization over those 10 weeks. And then if I just can, Elaine, just if I think of it from a graduate program perspective, let's say, for example, you are hired into the multi-asset, for example, graduate program, you would typically do 3 of your 4 rotations within multi-asset. But then as a graduate, you have the choice to do what we call 1 out-of-stream rotation. And this again is when I had mentioned earlier in the conversation to say that we give our graduates breadth and depth of learning, because yes, it's important to learn and understand the business area and the function that you've been aligned to, but we also require graduates to learn more broadly about the industry. So for example, if you show a desire to want to learn more about our technology business, we will give you the time and the space on one of your rotations to actually rotate into technology or risk and compliance or operations, or perhaps you'd show a desire to want to rotate within another asset class if you want to go to equities. There are those options available, and again, that just shows the flexibility and the choice that we give our graduates during their time on the program.
Brilliant, thanks, Nadia. There's a couple of questions on here about international students and whether that would impact applications. Are you able to just quickly cover that off, and then I've got a question for David?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a sponsor organization, so we are able to sponsor international students if they were to be successful to join our graduate program.
Great, thanks, Nadia. David, this one's for you. So and I think it's another interesting one, over the last decade, low-cost passive investment funds have been growing rapidly, and this is posing a threat to actively managed funds, something that we hear a lot about internally. How does Aberdeen plan to deal with this challenge? Do you have a perspective on that?
Again, very interesting question. The guests on this call are clearly very clued up on the world of asset management, so well done to those of you asking these. I think one of clearly with any investment proposal, there's income or inflows and outflows, and the inflows are from the fees that the fund charges, and the outflows are on the investments. Now, in our world, in the world of Aberdeen, you essentially want to try and get as much in and pay less out than perhaps you need. And in private markets, as opposed to public markets, the yield, the return that you can get is a lot higher than in public markets. Private equity, for example, generally returns, say, 12%, 13% per annum, and equities are, say, 7%. So that difference is attractive to us as investors, and that has meant that our private markets division in the investments vector is having a lot of resources allocated to it. I mentioned earlier our emerging markets and Asia specialities. We also have a real strength and depth in the private markets area, and that will be one of the also key focuses of our business moving forward. So yeah, back to you, Elaine.
Brilliant, thanks, David. Couple of questions have come in, Nadia. Do we do a rolling deadline for applications to our programs?
No, we don't. We don't do a rolling deadline process, no.
And thanks for clearing that up. And there's a few questions here about people who have graduated a few years ago or master's students. I'm taking it based on the answer you gave before. Those are applications. We would still absolutely consider those as valid applications for either the internship or the graduate program.
Absolutely, but I would also just echo the comment that you made, Elaine, to say that the graduate and internship programs are not the only routes to entry. There are other opportunities that do become available from a professional hire perspective, and those would be continuously available as and when they do become available. So I wouldn't limit your application only to an internship or a graduate program. I would look more broadly across the vacancies within the organization.
Great. Thanks, Nadia. And just quickly, we are offering a technology graduate scheme this year as well. That will open in mid-October, is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we will be indeed.
Brilliant. David, back to you. A couple of questions I'm wondering if you can group together. What's the day-to-day life of an investment analyst, and what is it you like about multi-asset versus the other asset classes you could be working in?
Okay, thank you. I'll try and answer those in one. I think in multi-asset, as I was saying, it's a macro style of investing. So you need to have an appreciation of how all of the different asset classes work together or perhaps against each other in all of the different regions. So I think one of the really attractive areas and attributes of that is the fact that you really need to be up to speed on current affairs. So you really need to know, for example, a very topical one, what's going on in the German election and how will that impact the investments world? So to hopefully answer the first part of the question, the day-to-day, every morning we have an investment catch-up meeting from 8:30 till 9, which is what is going on? Are we changing our portfolios? Are there any meetings with research providers? So say, an expert in Chinese equities, an expert in sustainability, they might come in and give us a presentation. So what is going on in the world? How are we positioned for it? It would then probably involve some sort of quantitative work to refine our models to perhaps translate that, what is going on, into how are we making our investments. And again, a conversation probably with an external research provider or an external company that's telling us either some regulatory changes that we need to be aware of, how are we screening our funds, and then of course also talking to our micro investors. So in multi-asset, the macro, we also talk to the bottom-up teams, so a meeting with them to say, well, what are you seeing on the ground? What are the companies talking to you about? And I think all of this together, so essentially current affairs, likely some quantitative skills, and then also talking to those in the industry on the ground, just to get all of the information and hopefully bundle that up such that we can make the best informed decision and investments that we can for our clients. I hope that answers it, but back to you, Elaine.
Brilliant, thanks, David. And I think there's one question left, and just looking at the time, we might close on that one. So the final question in the list is, are you part of the 10,000 Black Interns Program? And Nadia, I don't know if you want to say a little bit about that in closing.
Yeah, absolutely. So important to mention, and I have already mentioned this in our discussion. Diversity and inclusion is at the heart of everything that we do from an early careers perspective, and it's absolutely essential for us to make sure that we are diversifying our entry level talent coming into the organization. So yes, we are indeed, we partnered as part of the Pioneer program, the 100 Black interns. We partnered with them and the program organizers this year, and we had some wonderful talent that joined us over the 10-week internship program, and we've seen a number of conversions from that 100 Black intern partnership. We have agreed our participation in the 10,000 Black internship program for next year. So please go on and apply. I know that their applications are open at the moment, so go on and apply to that program. It's a fantastic program that's been put in place, and of course we are a partner organization to that program for next year. So we will be welcoming 10,000 Black interns onto our internship program next year.
Amazing. Thanks, Nadia. I think we've managed to work our way through all of the questions. Nadia and David, thank you ever so much for helping me do that. I've noticed as well a few of you have reached out with LinkedIn Connects over the course of the session. Please feel free to ask any questions post the session, either via the Diversity Project, or I'm happy to help directly if that's easier. So I hope the session this evening has been informative for you, and enjoy the rest of your evenings. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, everyone. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.